What is up? I'm Jared Welch. He's Aaron Halterman. It's Thursday, July 20th, and this is Bull Linkers Off. What's up, man?
What's up, man? How's it going, everybody? Glad everybody's tuned in. It's gonna be, man. I've all day I've been saying the same thing. It's like, man, this is awesome. This is gonna be a huge weekend. This feels like a huge weekend, and that's because it is. So I think this is gonna be a pretty good show tonight. There's a lot of big stakes races that we're gonna cover on the show.
Dude, I was up last night handicapping and getting kind of the show layout ready. I thought, my goodness, this is, and then you add in the Chuvy on Sunday that came out today. It's like, Mike, this is a monster weekend. Like you said, I mean, it's the biggest weekend we've had so far, just certainly this summer, and probably the biggest weekend we've had definitely since the Belmont.
I agree. Yeah, I think this weekend rivals that Belmont. To be completely honest, I thought, man, I mean, just because there's so much going on everywhere. That Belmont card is amazing. There's nothing happening anywhere else of note. Where here, it's like we got Saratoga, you got opening weekend at Del Mar, and you get the Haskell. And oh, by the way, the Haskell's drawn a fucking fantastic field. So it's all around, man. It's going to be awesome this weekend. I can't wait. And I think minus those Triple Crown days, and honestly, it's probably better than the Preakness. I think this is the best weekend we've had all year.
From a 3-year-old standpoint, it's the best. I mean, it might be a more important race than the Kentucky Derby, to be frankly honest with you. But it's biggest race since then for 3-year-olds, because it's such an important part of the season for these 3-year-olds. And not just that, you do have the Derby winner in the race, but you also have the new horses, the horses that were injured, the horses that that missed the Triple Crown for whatever reason. Now they're here, and so this is kind of like, what do we have to work with these, with the Go Rocket Rides and the Extra Nehos and the Arabian Nights? What are we working with these? And then you got the Mage and you got the Tapatrice, and so you've got everything you really want out of the race, essentially here. So other than maybe Forte, so we'll see him later. But it definitely feels, and on top of that, it's a classic win in your in race, and in a year that it feels like the classic could have a 3-year-old winner. I think it's more likely than last year. Let's put it that way. That it's a hell of an important race.
You hit all the nails right on the head right there. I don't have a whole lot to add. That's the biggest deal of it. And I'll just kind of reiterate the fact that we are getting some horses that missed the Triple Crown Trail that we really like. We're getting them in this race, and they're going up against the Derby winner and the Tapatrice. And so it's finally now we can go, okay, hey, is this what we thought it was, where the better horses are really going to come out in the summer and they miss the Triple Crown season, or did we overrate them? On and on and on. So I'm super intrigued to see how they match up and see what happens, and kind of see if that opinion was right or wrong.
Yeah, I've got a couple, maybe some hot takes. We'll get to that when we get to the Haskell. But yeah, I mean, and on top of that, past the Haskell, like you mentioned, Del Mar opening day tomorrow on Friday, the Oceanside. And by the way, I mean, it may not have like the world-class horses that maybe Saratoga is getting right now. Obviously, we'll see some of those at Del Mar eventually, but the betting of these races is, I mean, it's almost, you might as well just throw a dart in the Oceanside and the San Clemente on Saturday. But they're a hell of a betting race. They're going to be super exciting turf races. They're fun, but man, they're challenging. But I mean, for Del Mar, it's a betting, paradise when it comes to those two races this weekend.
You're not wrong. Del Mar did not disappoint. It always is pretty darn tough. The first 2 days of Del Mar, Friday and Saturday cards are always murder. They've outdone themselves. These are really, really tough races. But like you said, they're good betting races. You can take stands in some of these stakes races. I mean, that's not to say you're going to be right, but there's horses you can feel confident about. There's good horses in the race, but there's not those, slam dunk standout types. That's just no.
Yeah, it's definitely not that, but it is. I mean, they're great races to bet. They're fun to watch because it's like, here they come flying late, and it's just obviously when you're Del Mar, it's hard to get too disappointed. And by the way, to round it out, you have Sunday, which is a small field. I get it, but you get Ness versus Clariere in
Yeah.
QV, which is like a Crystal Ensign kind of prep race. But how about Ness? We haven't seen her since the Breeders' Cup last year. Just said, hey, let's throw her in against Clariere, who, by the way, has rattled off back-to-back Grade 1 wins in dramatic fashion. She's going to have to do it again here because there is no pace in the race, because Nest is you would seemingly think, a formidable opponent coming out of off the layoff. So we got a Sunday finale that's should live up to a nice little kind of conclusion to a huge weekend.
Somebody on the Magic Mike show was complaining that it's a 4-horse field, and I'm just like, well, I didn't say anything, but I thought to myself, it's Clariere and Nest. It really, whether there's 8 other horses or 2 other horses in it, I mean, that is a really intriguing matchup. So yeah, it's exciting. We'll talk all about that one as well. I mean, this is just one of those weekends, man. You wake up Saturday, you're smiling from ear to ear because it's like, yeah, this is gonna be a fun day, and hopefully we can help you cash some tickets as well.
That's right. Speaking of, before we get into the weekend, we'll get into it because it's a big show here. But kind of thoughts as we are in week, right in the middle here of week 2 of Saratoga. Any lingering thoughts? Any things that you've kind of noticed? Things that you've had to change from your betting or anything like that through a week and a half?
Nope, not a thing. I think it's playing really fair. I think the weather did ruin a couple cards, but that happens up there. I don't see a lot of biases one way or the other. It's been a meet where I can look incredibly stupid for a sequence of 5 races, and then incredibly smart for a sequence of 5 races, and I don't really know why one way or the other. But I don't see any adjustments to make or anything like that. I think it's playing fair. I think it's super, super interesting how the races are unfolding, and it feels like a normal Saratoga meet so far.
Dude, I've had days, and I know I'm not. I mean, you just said it, so I'm speaking to the choir here. But I've had days where I'm like, my horse may not finish the race. I mean, I might have it played in exacta, and they finish like 8th and 9th.
Yeah,
and you're like, what? And then other days where I might play like 3 horses or whatever, however I'm playing it, and they go 1 through 3. Where I feel like I'm seeing it so well. It just it sometimes I do think, to be honest, like doing my best bets, I bet today I got a little bit more on track, a little bit, but I've been cold lately, and it's just I'm doing the same thing, that I was doing when I was cashing big time, So it's just like part of you wants to go like, well, do I really want to just keep playing like the exacted like I've been doing, or the double like I like to play, or whatever it is. But I do, you just got to stick with it because it's so frustrating.
Let me sum up Saratoga in a nutshell. And thank God this has a happy ending. So Wednesday, the early pick 5 ticket for the Rockets went 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5. I played a double on the best bets during that sequence that went 0 for 2. I played a pick 3 that went 0 for 3. And I went to lunch with Heather that day, and I said, I think I might be done. Like, this is embarrassing. Come home from lunch, hit the late pick 5 on the Rockets for $1,700, and then hit a double that I think it profited like almost $200 on the best bets. It was just spot on. Couldn't have been any better through that 5 race sequence after looking like I had no idea what I was doing in the first 5. And I did the same exact style of handicapping, plays, all of it. So that's, I mean, that is gambling in a nutshell, but that is Saratoga in a nutshell, man. Like, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, look at last week. I mean, it's a little different, but we sat here and talked about, in Italian can't be like she's a dominant figure in this race. Like that she's gonna, no one's gonna challenge her. She'll be out there, cruise, whatever, and she gets beat by her stablemate. White Bean, and it's not like we were surprised that White Bean, like, because we like that horse, right? I think we both like that horse, but just in Italian, the number, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was a 90 something, the Beyer, 94, 96. In Italian, runs 101s, 102s in her sleep. And it's just like, no matter, it's frustrating because it's like, even though you could say, I was right if, say, you picked against her, But like, really, like, how could you ever predict she's going to run that poorly with that trip?
It's a filly that can go out and run 46 and change for the first half in her sleep, and she runs 48. And I think a lot of people watch that and go, "Oh, she's relaxed. This is gonna be a problem." But you're also leaving all those other horses in the race, and that's what happened. She didn't get that separation. And then when she asked to quicken, she did, but a horse was right on her, and so she fought that. I mean, she fought like hell. I thought she ran well, but I think looking back, when you've got a horse that has that kind of speed, use it, get away from everybody. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, it was like that all day. It felt like, and then you had the scratches on Sunday, and the weather, and all Saturday, Sunday. So it's just like it's kind of a nightmare weekend. This weekend the weather's good, and across the country the weather should be good, I think. So how about we get to it? We have a big show lined up. We're going to preview and get picks for Saturday's $1 million TVG.com Haskell Stakes at Monmouth Park. It's a Breeders' Cup winning your end for the 2023 Breeders' Cup Classic. Then we're going to give some rapid fire selections for, a ton of stakes races. We're going to give the United Nations at Monmouth Park, but then we're also going to go to Saratoga and Del Mar for the massive racing we have across the country. Let's go. Hey, remind me, didn't they like, it used to be the Haskell was a winner in, then they stopped doing it for a few years? Like, is this the first year it's back after a few years? I don't feel like it was last year, was it?
No, it has been for a while. Yeah, they never stopped it.
Maybe it's just like the horses were you never felt like it mattered. I don't know.
But. Well, Authentic, he won it and won the
I know
Cup, so
maybe I'm just crazy. That's possible too.
Yeah, no, always the thing that we always are like, what is the Travers is not a win and you're in, but the Haskell is.
Which most years is a joke.
Yeah,
but this year, you definitely can't argue that the Haskell is.
They both should be.
But yeah, exactly.
To me, they both should be, or they both should not. Right.
Right.
There's no world where one should be and one should not be.
Exactly. I don't know the numbers, right? I have to research it, but I can't imagine that the numbers are, that we've had more success out of horses coming out of the Haskell when it comes to the Classic than the Travers, right?
Right. You wouldn't think.
And in fact, the Haskell, in a lot of regards, is looked as a prep to the Travers.
Exactly.
To a lot of trainers, Mage being one of those in this year's running. So it's like, how is a prep a win you're in, but the main event's not? So,
the Breeders' Cup's one of the few people or few organizations in racing that we're friendly with, that they actually respect us and we respect them. We should probably ask that question to somebody that would actually have an answer and see what the logic is.
Yeah, I would like to know that too. By the way, speaking of what I'd like to ask, I'm going to ask our good friend over there about this. Where's it at? How about this? The Classic this year is the third to last Breeders' Cup race at Santa Anita this year. So the Classic, and then remind me, Elton, it's like the Turf, and then Turf Sprint or something, and then the Sprint, something like that.
Maybe the mile, maybe the dirt mile. I can't remember either. Look, they wanted to have it, the Classic on the big television network, and to do that, you either had to run all those races really early in the day for California time, Pacific time, or you position it where you position it, because the big network is going to college football at a certain time. So
it's Classic, Turf Sprint, and then Sprint.
Okay, so it is a sprint. Weird.
To me, it's like the Breeders' Cup is the Breeders' Cup. I'll be excited no matter what. But like you and I were talking about yesterday, it just, anyone that's been there, and we go every year, it's like, especially for some years are different where you're still excited for the Classic, but maybe it's not like the best Classic, and so you're not overly excited. But years like with Pharaoh, or even last year with Flightline, or there's tons, Zenyatas and all those kinds, where you have these anticipated matchups. The buildup is just, it goes bigger and bigger and bigger as the day goes on, and you can it's thick in the air. You can feel it, that it's
Yep.
coming up. It's getting close, And so it's just weird. It's going to be weird to kind of adjust to like here it like this build up and then it happens. And then, oh, by the way, we have 2 more races to go. So it just be kind
Yeah.
of weird.
It is. It's weird. I'm not saying I like it at all. I'm just saying that's why they did it. Now whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. It seems strange that it's not last, but I guess it doesn't have to be. So
Who's going to be? I'm trying to think of who might be like a sprint horse that like is Elite Power going to be a sprint or is he
well,
going to be
yeah.
dirt mile or dirt mile?
No, he'd be a sprinter. Elite Power. He's the headliner.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the turf, is that Caravel? The turf sprint?
Yeah, turf sprint would be Caravel. Yeah.
The little Cody's Wish Caravel into Elite Power.
There you go.
I'm working out my pick 3 here. Don't worry about it, okay? I'm already planning it. All right, I got it. Single.
The BC people, they're really freaking out about it. So.
Oh yeah, we saw it firsthand last year when we were up there hanging out with Samich for a lot of the day. It's like everyone gets especially if you're struggling and you just kind of like last ditch effort, you need to throw something together. The Classic is kind of the race you kind of save your bullets for, and so it's going to be a different strategy this year to do it, and to have it be the sprint.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I mean, I guess they could land it in the Classic, but I doubt it.
Yeah, no, I think they'll end in the whatever race is the last Breeders' Cup race. So that'll be an adjustment for sure, but they can handle it. I've got a lot of confidence in them. They can handle it.
Yeah, I think if they can't handle that, then all right. Saturday, Monmouth Park, race 12, the TVG.com Haskell Stakes, grade 1, $1 million, 3-year-olds going a mile and an eighth. And again, it is a Breeders' Cup win, and you're in for the Longines Classic this fall at Santa Anita. And, Field of 8 lines up here. And we talked a lot about this in the opening. We talked a lot about it in the weeks coming. This is the field. You can't ask for much better when it comes to a Haskell race. 5-2 on the outside on Arabian Night for Bob Baffert. The theme of this race is going to be the new shooters versus kind of the established 3-year-olds that we've been seeing, including the Kentucky Derby winner, Mage, who's 3-1, who kind of last second decided, you know what, we're actually going to prep in this race and then go to the Travers. 9-2 on Go Rocket Ride, the horse that maybe would have won the Santa Anita Derby, but scratched the morning of. I remember where I was sitting that when I heard that news. Tappet Trice at 3-1. Extra Anejo, another horse that, just kind of behind the 8 ball all year with the injury. 5-1 on Extra Anejo. Dude, I mean, I guess you can add in Salute the Stars, who looked okay, I'd say, in the local prep for this at 8-1. Brad Cox Rosario, you got to respect the connections there. But, Field of 8, and it really is. It's a matter of like Extra Anejo, Arabian Night, and Go Rocket Ride versus the field. I feel like it's like the 3 new shooters versus the ones we've seen, the Derby winner, the Tappet Trice, the Belmont, everyone thought would be the Belmont winner, the Belmont horse. It's kind of that feel to it when you go into this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to be the most intriguing thing about it. And look, that's kind of where I started with this and said, okay, look, I've been waiting for Arabian Night to come back. I've been waiting for Go Rocket Ride to get this opportunity, in a big time grade 1 race. Here they are, right? And they both came in from California, and I think they're loaded and ready to go. Richard Mandella has shipped a horse to the Haskell for the Haskell Stakes, I should say, one time, and it was in 2000, and it was a winner. Bob Baffert feels like he wins this almost every year. So listen, both of the things, like, look, Arabian Night comes off a long layoff and they go right to the Haskell. So that tells me he's doing fantastic. Flip side, Go Rocket Ride and Mandella. I mean, Mandella has known forever that Arabian Night's coming to this race. He ships it in anyway. I mean, I like those horses 1-2, just for the fact that I think they're better. I've had the feeling they're better than the rest of the group that we've had in the Triple Crown season. And the fact that they're both here tells me they're doing great. I think Arabian Night's going to be super tough. I put him on top. I got Go Rocket Ride in second.
I have a hot take for you. So the more I looked at this race, the more it's like, it kind of feels like okay, like okay, the B team's been playing all year. Now the A team shows up here in the summer. Like we've been waiting for our chance. I think we have a bunch of pretenders, and now the contenders are showing up. Extra Anejo, Arabian Night, Go Rocket Ride. I'll throw him in there too. At least one of those three, I think, are inc- drastically better than anyone else in the race. I really Mage is the wild card because if he runs a Derby race, he's probably going to win. But there's also a lot of signs to say he won't. One, that was an outlier when you look at his whole career. Two, I don't necessarily like he's had a lack of works. This feels they've literally said this is going to be like a work. Instead of running a work, I mean, they're going to do this race instead to grade one. You know, you have that kind of, you want to run your horses in grade one. So it just feels like a little bit last minute for Mage. He's still a good horse. I wouldn't doubt if he ran well. But I just don't have the confidence in him. You look at this Arabian Night, Extra, and Aho. I think those two, and you really Go Rocket Ride could be. You know, we don't know him with him either. But I just think those three, these are the horses you want right now moving forward this year. I don't want anything to do with a lot of these other ones in this race. So I just think it's all about who are you going with out of those new shooters. And it's hard to go against the guy that wins this race. I think he's won 9 times. Bob Baffert won the Haskell. Maybe he's looking for his 9th. Someone can correct me on that. It's either 8 or 9. He knows how to win this race with 3-year-olds. In fact, he knows how to win this race with 3-year-olds that are kind of coming into their own right now as well. Like he knows how, when he ships one, and you said it earlier, just like Mandela, like you got to respect that because when he ships one in, they're not shipping them in to just run,
Mm-hmm. Honestly, if Mandela hadn't have shipped, I probably would single the 8, but him shipping the 1 really, really has me interested. And kind of to your point, I ended up going a little bit deeper in here because the other kind of wild card is Asmussen with Extra Anejo. There's a lot of places Extra Anejo could have shown up that would have been easier spots that he probably would have either won or at least been a favorite to win, right? But he's here, and I thought that was very interesting. Asmussen's a guy, he's got stables all over this country. He could go anywhere. He came here, and he came here knowing Arabian Night, Go Rocket Ride, Mage, all these horses were going to be there. It's not that he doesn't have respect for him. He does, but he's not scared. So I don't think you can leave Extra Nao off a ticket. This is not an idiot. This is the trainer that's won more races in North America than anybody in the history of the sport. He knows how to spot horses. That's how he wins races, right? I am very intrigued to see what he does here. I think he's interesting. To be honest, I haven't really seen a race from Extra Anejo that tells me he can win this one, but I feel like that race is still out there for him. We still don't know quite the peak of what he is. So I've got him on a ticket as well. And then Mage, I'll touch on him. I am interested in Mage in this spot because that pace looks like it's going to be fairly hot up front. Mm-hmm. It might set up for a closer to come from out of it. I think Mage is good enough if he runs the Derby effort. I think Mage is good enough to win and will have a big shot to win. I'm with you, though. I think that might be the outlier. And I think, quote unquote, normal Mage, all of his other races Mage, he's not good enough. But if Derby Mage shows up, he's definitely good enough.
I mean, you look at, I don't know what his time form numbers are like, but when you look at his buyers, it's like an 89, 88, 94, 105, 94. He really ran the same race he ran in the Florida Derby that he did in the Preakness, but numbers wise, the Derby he just ran insanely well. And he can do it. He's capable of it. I'm not like discrediting him. He ran awesome in the Derby. But was that an outlier? I mean, I guess we'll see. Well, it just doesn't feel like I have the confidence in betting him here and expecting him, because I think he is going to take that effort. Because maybe Go Rocket Ride doesn't fire, maybe Extra Anejo doesn't fire. Mm-hmm. One of those three, I think, are going to fire. Arabian. One of those three, he's going to have to run a huge race. I find it highly unlikely that all three of the horses I claim to be the live horses, the contenders, all wouldn't fire. And Mage, you know what I mean? Like he's going to have to run a huge race to win. That's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I think it does have, he is going to have to run his Derby effort. I agree. And look, forget about the numbers, right? Don't, I mean, you go visually watch the races. And you could see just a massive difference. That Derby, it was spectacular. It really was. And like I said, if he shows up with that, well, he's probably just the best horse, and he's probably the best horse in this crop, and that's it, right? He's probably going to be the 3-year-old of the year if he can run that kind of race again. But Florida, I look back to even the Florida Derby where I thought he ran really well. You have to win if you get into that position in your Mage. You have to win that race, and he couldn't, right? Nobody was going to beat him on Derby Day, though. But again, Preakness, when you're turning for home, you've got to win that race, and he just couldn't do it. And maybe he's got the excuses of poor trips, Florida Derby and Preakness. Maybe he was a little tired, this and that. Possible. And if you're a Mage supporter, I don't necessarily hate that opinion, but I just really feel like he's still in the oddest way has a little bit more proving to do, that he can put together that big race for more than once.
Yeah, I mean, he's a scary one. Like
He is.
you almost feel like you got to try to use him because you don't really want to get beat by Mage, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you don't have the confidence. I don't have the confidence in like solidifying him as like a top pick either. So it's just kind of, and Nick, I'm with you. Like it does feel like the Curlin would have made sense for Extranejo. I kind of felt like the Curlin was Extranejo. The gym it was Disarm, and vice versa. I guess it could have been either way, but I kind of felt like it was going to be one of those two, both of those. So the fact that it's like just like Go Rocket Ride, Mandela knew who would be in this race or had a good idea. Asmussen knew who'd likely be in this race. So the fact that they're not dodging anybody to run them in this race, I think, is super telling.
Well, the Curlin is probably a race, and I hate to say this because it holds a special place in my heart because it's Curlin, a horse that I love, and I'm usually at the Curlin, or we're at the Curlin, and so we have some special memories of that race. Oddly enough, it probably needs to be done away with. I mean, if you look at year after year of the Curlin, those horses like Extranejo, that even the ones that fit, they never go to it. They just never go to it, and it always ends up you're sitting there the 1st of July and you're like, ooh, he'd be good for the Curlin. Oh, that's a race perfect for this horse, the Curlin. They never seem to show up for whatever reason. And one other thing about it, Pletcher ran a maiden Dreamlike at Saratoga the other day, and Vinny was like, I can't believe he didn't save him for the Curlin. It would have been a perfect spot for him to go win a stakes. I said, Vinny, this maiden special weight is worth more money than the Curlin. They're running maidens for 136,000 at Saratoga. The Curlin's worth 135. Dreamlike made more money in a maiden special weight than he did in the Curlin. So it's just not a race that these guys take serious.
I mean, it's clearly Blazing Sevens is like the clear heavy favorite in that race, and
yeah,
I don't like Blazing Sevens at all. My kids are outside the window, so
probably should win.
He should win, but but that tells you a lot about the race, right?
Yeah.
It's like if Blazing Sevens is your quote unquote clear favorite that should win, it's like, really? That horse?
And my whole point is, like, to Nick's point, like I said the same thing. I said, oh, Extranejo will go to the Curlin. It's a perfect spot to set him up. I say that about horses every year. They never go to that race. And then you get the race and it's like, who are some of these? So
yeah.
It is what it is.
How about this? I was just kind of thinking about this as I was looking through them. You've got, Go Rocket Ride was cheap relatively to everyone else, $350,000 horse. But you look at this race, Tapit Trice, $1.3 million, Extranejo, $1.35 million, and then Arabian Night, of course, was a $2.3 million. I mean, the amount of money they spent on these horses alone, the hopes were there from the start with all these horses, with the Tapit Trices and the Nejos and the Arabian Nights. So yeah, there's a reason why they're showing up here, and they're not in the Curlin, like you mentioned. So
yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about it. We've talked through the field. How do obviously we will go over. I'm more interested personally to know how you're playing it when I look at the betting Bible here in a little bit. But we'll have our full bets and how we're going to play this race in the betting Bible. You can go get that at racingdudes.com now. But what are your thoughts? How are you tackling this? Is it Arabian Night? I mean, he's breaking from the 8 spot. You got to think he's going to go with it. Do you just think John Velasquez says, we're going to do what we do with this horse and we're going to go, and everyone else is going to have to try to catch us?
Yes. To me, yes. The simple answer. I don't think you get him out of his comfort zone unless somebody's just going crazy. Then maybe you take him a little bit off of it. But I think you just send him and say, play catch me if you can. And I think that's his best option. Now, that might be Extra Anejo's best option too, and that could be a little bit weird. One thing about it, that race last time out for Go Rocket Ride, where he kind of just sat in third, about 2-3 lengths off, set that pocket trip. That would be a perfect situation for him in this race if the 7 and the 8 do go out there. So yeah. I do like that tactical ability. That's why I can't get over him. And man, I'm going to tell you, I almost made Go Rocket Ride the top pick, but I just feel like this Arabian Night, he might be a little bit different than the rest of them. He was really spectacular in 2 races, and for Baffert to bring him here, it just feels like he's going to show up and run huge, and he still could get beat because that's the type of field it is. You could run huge and lose, but I just have the most confidence that he's going to show up and take it to him.
Here's the thing about this is kind of, and I think it's sometimes hard to, when it's been a horse, like, even though it is Baffert and, it's obviously a horse that has the connections and whatnot, but when a horse hasn't ran since January, it's hard to kind of remember, and you kind of forget the hype around him. But until you go back and watch and remind yourself of what he was like, arguably Arabian Night was more impressive that day than Forte in the juvenile. I mean, definitely right there in line. Mm-hmm. It was a wow performance. You knew from that. You knew halfway through the race that we're working with something special here, right? Mm-hmm. And then he goes out and lives up to that in the Southwest, and we kind of find out like they were kind of turning him off anyways at that point, and he went out there just dominated. He's not even gotten close to losing a race. I know he's only ran twice, but still, I just think he's in another realm of these horses. I just don't know. I think it's going to be Baffert's 10th win of the race now. He's going to have to not run a race. He's going to have to run poor, very poorly, I think, to lose this thing.
Well, I don't know about that. I think he could run really good and lose. I respect this field a lot.
I just don't. I get if it is someone, it's got to be one of the two, that the Extra Anejo or Go Rocket Ride. Go Rocket Ride, I think I agree with you on that. Like, he's going to sit a nice trip if he can sit that trip. Because here's the thing, like, you got to know you can't go out there with Arabian Night. You've got to make a decision there if you're Mike Smith, and Go Rocket just kind of sit a little bit of a pocket trip there and then kick out, when the running starts there at the top of the stretch, and hope that you can get to the horse. But I just think at that point, Arabian Night might be just too far gone. So, yeah, to me, Arabian Night's the real deal. But it's a tough race to bet because, what do you want? Do you want to play like an 8? You have to play some sort of straight exacta or something in order to get your money's worth. And it's tricky because it's like you could easily play like a 1 or an 8-1 or an 8-7 or something like that. But would it be that surprising if Tapit Trice got second or Mage got second? It's like, no, not at all.
No.
And so it's like, it's just one of those, you're going to have to take your opinion and just hope it's right, because there's a lot of good horses. Like Tapit Trice, we haven't talked a lot about Tapit Trice, but I just don't have any faith that he can win the race at this point. But I mean, will he run his race? Yeah, he probably will run his race. I mean, the fact he's another horse, I didn't think we'd see him here. The fact that they showed up here with him tells you that, Pletcher's acts like he's doing really well. So, what kind of race will we see out of him? We'll find out. But I do think he'll run his race, which would be good enough to be a factor at the finish, right?
Should. I mean, I think he'll show up and do what he does. And I think third is not out of the question for him. Maybe second, like you said, just depending on, if Extra Anejo, Arabian Night go nuts out there and the pace really falls apart, yeah, Tapit Trice is going to be, moving up positions. He definitely could. He's just, out of all the horses that you're excited to bet about in this race, he just doesn't make my list. And I don't really care that he's even in the race. I'm not excited to watch him run or anything like that. Maybe now's the time he goes and wins, but he's
Yeah.
not for me as far as betting. But well, unless you're playing him underneath, and I think he does make sense. So, yeah, a lot of opinions saying 8-5 maybe a little short, and maybe Knight may get second. And all I could say is you might be right. I mean. Okay, the layoff, I'm really not that concerned about because it's Bob Baffert. And it's kind of like when Chad Brown has a horse off a layoff. I don't really care. They fire off layoffs, right? Some trainers are better than others. The competition, that's the worry to me. It's just like with Tabo last year. He had tough competition. That scared me in this race. He got beat. That 100% could happen here. 100%.
Yeah. It's funny too. You look at Tabit Trice, like I don't know what he is on the time form, but yeah, other than Mage, he's got the high buyer, which was 100 in the Belmont,
And that's
99 in the Bluegrass, which is another one that's higher than any race at Arabian Night or Extra Anejo or even Go Rock or Ride has ran, and in fact, any higher than any race Mage has ran other than the Derby. So it's like the numbers they're kind of there supporting Tapit Trice, but I'm with you. It's just like I've watched him enough to know I don't know. He's going to have to sprout wings, in my opinion, to win the thing.
I've taken all the numbers and I don't even look at them anymore. I think they're so irrelevant. And part of the reason is kind of what you said. You look at numbers horses get, and then you watch those races, and then you watch another horse that got a lower number, and it's like this horse is way better than that horse. So I don't really care about the numbers anymore. You can tell me buyers or time. I did a complete 180. I've tossed them. I don't care. There's no way in hell Tapit Trice has run a better race than half of these horses. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, listen, and like the numbers they take. Here's the
Throw 'em
thing.
out.
You got to be like, Halter and I had a conversation about this yesterday. It's like, you got to be so careful when it comes to numbers. I mean, all the time, but especially in races like where your eyes, you saw the race and
Yeah.
you're like, and then you see the number. And a lot of times what happens is you have a horse that ran really well, like Arcangelo, who gets a pretty high buyer. Well, then it kind of trickles down. Well, it's like, well, now Forte has to get this buyer, you know what I mean? And then Bell and then Tapit Trice has to get, two lower than that one or whatever it is, So it's like he may have got 100, but that's because Arcangelo got a 105, or I don't know what he got. I can't remember what he got. But the point is like sometimes a horse will get third or fourth or second, and they got beat by a wide margin, but because the winner got such a good buyer, that buyer is inflated, and you got to go and watch the race. I mean, obviously, these kind of horses, you remember the race, so but if it's not a race that you remember, go watch the replays and watch those and be like, I mean, I've seen Tapit Trice in person too many times at this point. I know what he does, and it's just like I'm just not getting there with him. Like he had every reason to win the Belmont. He had every reason, to to win the Derby, even though or let's just say get a better start in the Derby than he did, and he just didn't. And it's just I'm just not there with Tapit Trice. I'm at the wait and see point with him. So
Yep, 100%.
All right, so final pick. Who is it? And give us a brief explanation.
Yeah, just Arabian Night. I've been waiting for him to come back. The layoff is what it is, and if you're concerned about it, that's fine. I'm really not all that concerned about the layoff. Concerned about the competition for sure. It's gonna be a tough race, but I've been waiting for Arabian Night. I think he's ready to rock. I think he'll show up with a big effort, and it's Bob Baffert at the Haskell. It's hard to go against it. So I'm gonna go number 8, Arabian Night on top. Much respect to the 1, the 7, and the 4, though.
Yep, I'm with you. As soon as I saw that he was showing up here, and obviously held my breath when they acted like they were going to run here. It's like, let's wait to see if he's in there. He is. I think he's going to do his thing. I've been really high on him all year, and I think he's going to have a hell of a second half. And it's hard to go against a guy that's won the race 9 times and does extremely well with these kind of horses. So it's not a sexy pick, but I got the 8 Arabian Night. I think like an 8 over 1-7 or something like that exact is probably what I'll play here. The thing about it is, even though that's not crazy, it's like because there's going to be a lot of options, because Mage is in the race, because Tapit Trice is in the race, you're going to get a decent payout on that because of who else is in the race. So I
Mhm.
like that horse. I like Arabian Night. I do think, by the way, it is a classic winning you're in. We kind of touched on this earlier. I think we have a legit classic. Now, obviously, everything is factored on Cody's Wish and what he does in the Whitney and what he does stretching out. But we have a legit field here that has potential to be classic contenders. This feels like a legit classic prep for sure.
Yeah, take Cody's Wish out of it for a second. Because he's the unknown. He could show up in the Whitney and it's like, well, okay, he's gonna win, but he could not. If you take that horse out of it, the winner of this race, no matter who it is, you would think is right up there with anybody, right? Because the older horses outside of Cody's Wish, and well, an Elite Power, but he's a sprinter up to the mark, but he's a turf horse. In the classic division, the older bunch, it's not anything to be scared of outside of Cody's Wish. So
yeah,
if Arabian Night wins, if Go Rocket Ride wins, and they look really good doing it, yeah, they're in the mix without any doubt.
Really, you could. There's really for all of them, but especially Go Rocket Ride, especially Extra Neho, and most definitely Arabian Night. If one of those horses were to like flash, you know what I mean? Like just look really, really good in a win.
Mm-hmm.
They're shooting up to number 2 behind Cody's Wish, and they might go to number 1 if Cody's Wish doesn't run well in the Whitney or whatever. So yeah, I'm very high on. We've seen Bob Baffert do this with his 3-year-olds several times when it comes to classic winners with 3-year-olds. So I do think Arabian Night is a top contender. And Extra Neho, obviously, if you were to pass this test, would certainly be as well. Christopher wants to know, what do you think? 5-2, you're not getting 5-2 on Arabian Night. What do you think you're getting on him? 8-5?
Yeah, I think Samich speculated 7-5 or 8-5 on Arabian Night, and I think I said 2-1. I don't think it'll be fluctuate too far between those two numbers. You do have Mage, and he's going to take money because the Derby winner always takes money, and so that's the big key. How much money does he take will determine what Arabian Night is going to be. Like I said, 2-1 is my guess. Samich is at 7-5. It'll probably be somewhere around one of those numbers.
All things, still playable if you like him a lot. Those are, it's not like he's going to be sub even money or anything like that. So, and in fact, with that price, if you really like Mage, your Derby winner, every horse in here is playable based off of the competition and especially if you are against Arabian Night. So that's the field. That's our take. We both like Arabian Night, and we both like Bob Baffert to win his 10th Haskell on Saturday. Man, I don't know if you guys I could talk about that race for another hour or another 40 minutes. This race is so good. It's so good.
Yep. It's an awesome race. And even if, we're going to be betting the shit out of it. Don't get me wrong, but even if you're not betting this race from a fan standpoint, it's really intriguing to see what they do. And, we could be on here Saturday evening going, wow, Mage is just awesome. We overrated these horses, or you could be here with a whole new horse to kind of get excited about. So it's going to be fun.
I think he's good. I think he's the real deal. But we'll find out, right? So it's a like you said, even if you're not betting it, it's a race you've got to watch. All right, time for Rapid Fire, presented by the Haskell Stakes 2023 Betting Bible. It's available at racingdudes.com right now. If we just talked about the Haskell and how we're going to bet it and who we like, and if you want to see exactly how we're laying out our bets for not just the Haskell but the entire 14 race card at Monmouth Park on Saturday, go to racingdudes.com, go to the handicapping products page, and download the Betting Bible, where you can follow both myself and Halterman exactly how we're playing every race that day. We have all our listed bets. We have ROIs for all the types of bets, so you can see how we're doing in those. You also get top 4 picks from everyone on the team at racingdudes.com. So if you don't like us, you want Samich's or whoever Magics, you can get everyone's picks as well. And pick 4s, pick 3s, pick 5s, everything like that included as well. The Betting Bible at racingdudes.com. Make sure you go get your hands on that right after this. All right, let's go to opening day. at Del Mar. We're going to go to Del Mar. We got a big list here, so we're going to fly through these. Opening day, Del Mar, Friday, Caesars Sportsbook Oceanside Stakes. It's race 8, worth $100,000 for 3-year-olds going 1 mile on the turf. And let me just scroll through the field here. We got 14 horses lined up, Halterman, and it's a wide open affair. 7-2 on Escape Artist, but man, 5-1 on Panic. I mean, I'm not going to go through them all. Classic Cat is 4-1, 8-1 on Zalmo. Take your pick, man. Who do you like?
It's a hell of a race, isn't it? It's going to be fun. I have always have a heartbreaking loss. I feel like in this race every year, it's like my horse runs really well and gets second, and I get so mad. Well, I'm going to go number 1, Classical Cat this year, the Oceanside. I've been kind of waiting for this horse to come back. Ran on the dirt and had a good start. Then went to the Del Mar Futurity, got rocked. Moved to the turf and was really good in 2 starts at Santa Anita. Haven't seen this horse. Another layoff horse. But Diamato, very good off the layoff. Very good on the turf. Very good at Del Mar. Rispoli aboard. I think that's a good sign. I think Classical Cat is ready to run a big race here. So give me the 1, Classical Cat.
Son of Mendelssohn. So we'll see how that goes. But one that I definitely considered I thought Mr. Fisk was interesting here for Bob Baffert, making his turf debut, but a horse that, especially a horse that ran well and on dirt and got second last out to Go Rocket Ride in that Affirmed. So it's like, and then you switch over. So if that horse can kind of replicate the kind of speed figures that horse has been putting up on dirt, on turf, that horse would be dangerous. But I'm going to go to the horse just to the outside of that horse. I'm going to a little price hunting. Number 7, Agency at 15-1 for Mark Glatt and Sedelio getting the mount. But listen, this horse is another horse that lightly raced, had ran 3 races, ran second in the Best Pal last year at Del Mar, to having a meltdown. Of course, that was on the dirt. Went to the Del Mar Futurity, did not run well, did not see the horse again until this summer, where the horse showed up on the turf and really looked good, Halterman. I don't know if you remember this race or something. I mean, I'm sure you did, but I thought that was a really nice performance from a horse making his debut on the turf. And, if he can kind of use that as a springboard into this race, I think the horse is bred for this, to go this far, to go this distance, to go on turf. I do think this horse will be dangerous at a big price. So give me number 7, Agency at 15-1.
There's not another track in the country like Del Mar where you can make clear and logical cases for double-digit horses almost every race.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's not the only horse, by the way, in that race.
No.
That makes sense.
No. And, sometimes you make a case for maybe 1 or 2 on a card somewhere else, right? Or you kind of take a stab at one, but it's like, yeah, there's a lot that's going to have to go right for me to get this. Here it's like, yeah, I could see Agency winning. Sure. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. How about, another one to the horse to the outside, Kid Azteca at 12-1. I don't think that horse is, I think that horses ran well last out. The list goes on. Conclude is it's at 6-1, but another Diamato horse that's looked good on the front end. So yeah, I mean, this is that's what makes Del Mar so awesome and so frustrating, because you could be so right and so wrong all at the same time in these kind of races. It's brutal, but you got to stay the course. All right, let's go to Saratoga, and we'll stick to Friday. You got 2 stakes races. The Curlin Stakes, we talked about that a little bit ago. $135,000 for 3-year-olds going a mile and 1/8. Field of 5 shows up here, and you got 4-5 on Blazing Sevens for Chad Brown. Flavian Pratt gets the mount. Of course, Blazing Sevens finished second, nearly won the Preakness to National Treasure last out. Are you gonna take the 4-5 on him, or are you gonna try to beat him with one of these other 4?
I don't think Blazing Sevens is losing. I think he's winning this race. I do not like the other horses in this race. and let me be very clear. I don't pick Blazing Sevens ever. And it cost me big time in the Preakness, to not have him anywhere. But I don't like Blazing Sevens all that much, but I really dislike the rest of these horses. I almost picked number 4 Scotland, but I kind of just think Blazing Sevens is a little better than him. So I am going to choke down the 4-5.
Ugh. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I couldn't out of principle. I'm not gonna to be quite honest with you guys. I'm not gonna be betting this race. I'm gonna avoid this race because it just feels like you can't win. You know, if you go against Blazing Sevens, do you really have a horse? You know what I mean? Like, and if you do go with Blazing Sevens, like, do you really want to bet Blazing Sevens at 3-5 or whatever he's going to go off at? Not really. I went with the 2 Lost Ark, Pletcher, Irad. You know, this is a horse that obviously had some high hopes last year, struggled mightily, came back last out at Monmouth. Ran a really nice race off the bench there. So, listen, got an 87 buyer that day. It's going to take more than that, but maybe if that horse can kind of live up to some of the hype that the horse had early on, maybe this horse can, because you got to remember this horse in the Breeders' Futurity was like 6-1
Mm-hmm.
to Forte and Loggins and Red Route One. They were all in that race. He obviously was horrible, and then he was horrible in the juvenile. I mean, he was eased off. He walked off the track, and so then they waited, came back, ran at Monmouth. Like I said, looked really good. Paco Lopez was on the mount that day, but yeah, give me Lost Ark. Not interested in any of these horses, but someone's got to. I got to try to use somebody to beat Blazing Sevens, and I'm going to go with the 2. It's I don't suspect any of these horses are going to make noise in the Jim Dandy, or in the Travers, but they are running them. But there is another stakes race on the card, which is a little bit more exciting. We'll go to race 9, the Lake George Stakes, Friday still at Saratoga, Grade 3, 175K for fillies 3-year-olds. Going 1 mile on the turf, field of 10 lines up for this one. And you could also call this the Lake George Chad Brown Stakes because you've got half the field as Chad Brown horses. 3-1 at LaGuardia is a very interesting horse. Utilization rate at 9-2, tax implications at 5-1, and surge capacity at 6-1. That rounds out the Chad Brown horses. But you also have Queen Picasso for Clement, who's very interesting, I think, in this race. I guess if you want to go Pletcher with Princess Potato, I don't necessarily like that horse. But Chad Brown or Clement, where are you going?
I went with a 4 Liguria. I hate these races where they got all the Chad Browns. It's really tough. But I thought last time out she ran a really good race, and she was able to beat Tax Implications, a horse that I like in this spot as well. I think she's going to get a pretty good trip. I think there's a lot of pace, and she can come running again just like last time. And listen, you got Flavian Pratt. He's pretty hot right now at Saratoga. So give me the 4. It's one of those races you can look and fret over it, and it's just like, I don't know what Chad Brown to play here, So, but I think the 4 makes the most sense from a pace standpoint. So give me the 4.
Yeah, kind of, just based off of what I what I have read about the horse, and kind of from Chad Brown's comments, it feels like the 4 kind of woke up a little bit last out. Really this year, the horse, didn't run exceptionally well late in that Edgewood, but then that last race, I thought, man, this horse looked really good with Irad. Just kind of bided his time. Her time is long. I mean, gosh, Irad, how long did Irad wait to go on that one? And then finally just circled the field, and it was not really that, even though it was only three-quarters of a length, it wasn't that close. Once she got going, you're like, oh yeah, this is a good horse. So Pratt gets the mount back. I'm with you. I'm with you though. It's tough. I hate these races, like you said with Chad. Like, which Chad Brown is it? Like obviously he's got to think one of them's better than the other, or other the rest. And so it definitely feels like it's the 4, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a different one, which makes the race tough to bet, tough to handicap anyways. But yeah, give me the 4. I think this horse is the best of the Chad Browns, and is going to win the Lake George. Yeah, those are tough. Like, it's just like, what are you supposed to do with those? Especially when you don't. It's like, it's one thing if you have like, whatever in Italian with 4 other ones, and you're like, okay, I know that this is the one, right?
Right.
But when it's this, you're like, I don't really know. They're all this kind of the same, Maybe that one stands out a little bit, but.
And sometimes that one that you think's the one is not the one.
Well, we'll find out tomorrow. Let's move to Saturday, and let's go back to Del Mar for another crazy turf race. Race 9, the San Clemente Stakes, Grade 2, we're 200K for Phillies 3-year-olds going 1 mile on the turf. And oh man, another huge field here. Maxed out. Infinite Diamond, I guess, is going to scratch. But massive field, full field. Where are you going on this one?
Is this not one of the hardest ones you've ever handicapped? I mean, I looked at this forever and I was like, I don't know what to do here. I ended up going number 4, Delight on top. This horse is shipping in from Horseshoe, Indianapolis, but
always a good angle.
well, I thought she ran really well. She's run well in bigger races. I mean, she won the Jessamine at Keeneland last year by 5. She didn't do any running in the Breeders' Cup, but I feel like she kind of got back in form last time out at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. So I did go with the 4 on top here. Obviously not real confident. I also like the 11 a little bit too, coming in from overseas. I think this horse can run a little bit. So I went 4-11 with not a ton of confidence in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be one of those where you're like, all right, it's it's probably going to be late in the day, at the point you're betting this. You're like, yeah, let's see. I'll throw a couple bucks on this, see what happens. I went with I did this too, by the way, before the odds were out, so I'm kind of seeing the odds as we go through these. But Antoinette is the horse number 3, 4-1.
Yep.
I just, this is a horse I think that when you go back and watch that race, I went back and watched that one. Out to me was very impressive debut for Pal Alpha, coming in overseas. I just thought kind of stood out as like, that's a horse that knows what she's doing. And so it feels like, she's going to sit a nice trip here, come flying off. And Rispoli's, I like the fact that Rispoli, even though it doesn't, necessarily team up with Powell that often, Rispoli team, goes to this horse. Obviously, Pratt's not going to be riding that horse here on Saturday, so gets that. So I do think the horse is dangerous here. Honestly, it's one of those things, dude. It's like, I don't care if the horse is 4-1 or 12-1. You hit a race like this, you feel like you won. It's a 20-1.
Yeah.
The 12-1 I picked on Friday's race, the 4-1 here. I don't care what it's. If I can just get a winner in races like these, it's a win.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge win.
Agree.
Number 3, Antoinette for me. All right, let's go to. I mean, it's just it's as close as you can to putting a bunch of horses and just shaking them up and seeing what comes out.
Sometimes that's the hardest part about Del Mar. It's you can get to the horses you need if you go 4 deep, but it's like we gotta cut somewhere, and it's like cutting the right races. That's the key to Del Mar.
Yeah, and it's tough because they're all very evenly matched. It feels like on paper.
That's the like opening day. It's like I like 3 or 4 in here. I like 3 and 4 in here. Well, you can't go 3 or 4 every race, So who you leaning on? And you go, oh shit, I don't know who we're leaning on here. All
right, let's go back to Monmouth Park on Saturday. So we're going to round it all the way around the country. Come back to the United Nations Race 11, which is the race prior to the Haskell. Grade 1, 600K, 3-year-olds and up, going 1 and 3/8 miles on the turf. Field of 10 lines up here, and 5-2 on Red Knight. The 9 horse is going to be your favorite, but you kind of have a wide open race, especially if you're playing against him. Planetario at 3-1 for Mandela, 5-1 on Limited Liability, 4-1 on Catnip, 6-1 on Therapist. You kind of get your options, Halterman, on really, even if you like Red Knight, you get your options on who you like here and who to bet here.
Sure. I just think Red Knight's the class of the field. So I went with him. Last time out, got beat 4 lengths to up to the mark. I think that's pretty darn good. Only got beat a length and a half or so to those 2, to Soldier Rising and Ottoman Fleet. Also 2 pretty good horses. So, 2 races back, won the Man of War at the same distance as what this one's ran at. So I think Red Knight is the class of the field. I mean, I think think about it. If up to the mark was in this race, the horse would be 1-9, and he was competitive. He was close with him. So I think Red Knight is the class. I'm going Red Knight on top.
Red Knight, he deserves to be the favorite. I can't really disagree with anything you said. Having said that, though, I do I think he's a hard horse to count on every time. Sometimes
Sure.
he runs, like the Man of War. Sure, he won his grade one, maybe not the strongest grade one, but he did. But then there's other times like the Elkhorn, he can't quite get there, and he probably should have. There's, obviously he wins the McKnight, which is a grade three, but the Sycamore, he didn't run so hot last year. So it's like sometimes he does well, he runs well. Sometimes, you can depend on him a lot underneath. I've made money using him underneath as well as picking him to win. So I think I'll be using him underneath, but I'm gonna try to beat him with the 3 Catnip, which has got to be one of the better names on the card.
Oh yeah.
Especially for you. Rattled off three wins in a row. Has just really looked like a different horse this year. It has turned it on. The last 2 were at Monmouth. Has stretched out mile 16th, mile 8th. Has looked better with each and every distance increased, and really just obviously loves Monmouth Park, and Rosario gets the mount back, which could be looked at as a bad thing. But man, look at the way this horse has been working out. Loves the track. Seems like the numbers are on the improve every factor you looked at. So I think the Catnip is kind of the new shooter, new horse to beat Red Knight. So give me Catnip, the 3, to make the upset here.
Catnip, she likes it.
I wasn't even looking at the screen. I was looking at my past performances.
She was sitting over by me. I grabbed her. I said, "Come here, you're getting on the air." So yes, Catnip. She likes Catnip as well. So you're
Well,
2 for 2 there.
Her and I are on the same page in that race. I have no doubt. Does she have a voice?
No, she did. Well, she talks like a demon. That's how we make her talk usually.
Can you give us an example?
No, I'm not doing that on the air.
Oh man, I would maybe some other time. All right, let's go to Saratoga on Saturday. We're gonna round this out, and then we're going to Sunday for one more. But the Coaching Club, American Oaks, grade 1, 500K fillies, 3-year-olds going 1 1/8 miles. You got a field of 6 lined up here, dude. It's from all weekend, maybe other than like the Haskell, it's one of the better, like where it feels like take your pick, whether it be Hoosier Filly, whether it be Gambling Girl, who finished second in the Kentucky Oaks, whether it be Wet Paint, whether it be Southlawn, all horses, Sacred Wish even could pull off the upset. I mean, dude, there's so many questions here. Do you trust Hoosier Filly, who obviously has looked really good, but I don't know about the mile 8 for her. Gambling Girl coming off, is she legit? Wet Paint, the horse that we thought maybe is the Oaks winner, hasn't gotten the job done lately. Southlawn, definitely disappointed in the Oaks. Where are you going?
I'm so confused by this race. I really am. I went number 4 Gambling Girl on top. I'm not in love with it, but I just feel like at a mile and 1/8, I trust her a little bit more than the rest of these. You hit it. I think if the race is a mile, I'm going Hoosier Filly every day, but I can't get that race where she got caught by Tax. And not only did she get caught, but like Tax just blew right by her. Just can't get it out of my head. And I think the 6 will push her enough to where I think she'll run really good, but lose. And I think Gambling Girl is going to be the first, or going to be the one that's running the fastest late. So I went Gambling Girl on top. I almost went Southlawn, but I don't know what she is really. Wet Paint has not looked good the last couple of times, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to feel really dumb because I'm going to go fairly deep in this race, and it's just 6 horses. But this one's confusing to me. I went Gambling Girl on top.
Yeah, it doesn't, and there's no. I don't know. Like, I'm with you. Like, I wish Hoosier Phil is a shorter race or something, because the mile and 8th, this has me concerned. I just don't know. I think she might get a little weary legged and at least one of these horses would have something left in the tank to come get her. I think I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. I must be. I'm giving her. Let me just put this. This is my public announcement. I'm giving her one last try on Wet Paint. Wet Paint is my last. You got to win this or we're done. I did this with Tappet Trice. He didn't come through. We're done. But listen, my idea here, my thought process is like, maybe she just hasn't really liked the track at Churchill and Ellis, and obviously she really liked Oaklawn.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thought was like, oh, well, those horses sucked. Well, I mean, they kind of have. It seemed that way at first, but then, it wasn't like there was some terror. Like the Tax was pretty good, right? And so it's like maybe it was better than we thought, at least initially. So it's like I'm gonna give her one more because it just feels like that last race she was awful when she got lost. She lost to Hoosier Philly, but
Hmm.
I just maybe she couldn't quite get the track underneath her. Maybe this would be a nice change of scenery for her to kind of get back on track. Obviously, you got to like the fact that Pratt's back aboard, and they keep trying her in these kind of races, so they're not really discouraged from running her in this sort of race. So wet paint. I'm going one more time to the paint, and we'll see if she can get it done for me here.
Good luck.
What could go wrong?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she makes sense though, for sure.
All right, and finally, man, this has been the most, and some really good races here. Well, Sunday, after we've all had a hell of a Saturday, hell of a Friday and Saturday, we're gonna stick around for Sunday's race 4, the Chuvy Stakes, Grade 2, 200K, Saratoga, the fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up, mile and eighth. It's only a field of 4, but you have the 2 Nest versus the 4 Clairiere. No introductions needed here. Nest coming in off of the long layoff, last seen, finishing 4th, not really running that well in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. And then, of course, Clairiere on the flip side has been awesome lately and rattled off back-to-back Grade 1 wins in dramatic fashion. Which one you got, man?
Nest.
Me too.
Wow. She has such a pace advantage. I think she's better than the Breeders' Cup. The most disappointing horse of the Breeders' Cup was Nest for me, because I don't think that distaff was. I don't think they ran. I mean, they ran gutty, but they didn't run all that well. I mean, she should have dusted them, and I was bitterly disappointed with her. I think if she shows up with her CCA Oaks or Alabama, I don't think Clairiere will touch her. And with a 4-horse field, she's got the pace advantage. I think she dominates. Give me Nest.
Yeah, I think with Nest, it was just this is a horse that had rattled off, multiple Grade 1 wins, and obviously ran in the Belmont. Probably could have won the Belmont. Probably should have won the Oaks. Dusted them obviously in the Oaks, CCA Oaks, and the Alabama, and the Beldame, and just had rattled off a bunch of races in a row, and tough races, and I kind of caught up to her at the wrong time. Even she only had like a 2-month layoff from between her 2 to 3-year-old season, and so she had a lot of races in her belt. So it was probably a much needed rest that she got since the Breeders' Cup. So I'm with you, and I just think with Clairiere, and listen, from coming from somebody who made a lot of money off of her last time out playing a Clairiere search results exacta, it just feels like, especially at this distance, I do, dude, you know how many times she's won at this distance, Clairiere? Once in 6 starts at this distance. So it's not like she's like only happened twice. I mean, one time she's won at this distance. She's only won once at Saratoga. We know what Saratoga can do. And it just feels like one of those races that everyone's going to lock in Clairiere. And I just think Nest might kind of steal the thing on the front end, and in a race that's paceless. Because let's be honest, the 1 and the 3 are, they found those horses in the barns and said, "Hey, let's can you run, please?"
You find horses.
Well, the back barn, the barns that no one goes to. They're like, "Hey, remember these horses? Can we run these horses against these horses?" Okay, so, yeah, it's like that. It's really meaningless 2 other entries. They're not going to factor into their pace or anything. So, to me, it's just like Nest is going to have such a pace advantage, and Clairiere is really going to have their work cut out for her. And that's a tough. I get it's a tough ask to go against Clairiere off of that layoff, but kind of gives you some confidence too. The reason that they showed up in this race, with obviously bigger goals ahead, but I think she's going to be tough here.
I do too.
Do you think she could like just jump in immediately and be like, "Hey, everyone's Clairiere, or whoever you like in the older." It's like, "Hey, by the way, I'm not only have I'm back, but I'm gonna win the distaff too."
Yes.
Yeah, kind of
1,000% yes. I'm ready for her to disappoint me again. I couldn't have loved a horse more over the summer. For me, like an Epicenter was the horse of the meet at Saratoga, without any doubt. But for me, Ness was she just had a really special summer up there, and went to the Beldame and ran great. And I thought, man, she is just turning into a beast. To run that bad was just really frustrating. And I still think she is a superstar. I mean, to me, if she comes back like she did last year towards that middle part of the year, I still think she's the best horse in the division.
You're right. You're nailing it, man. It's like that was easily the most disappointing race of the Breeders' Cup last year, because I'm with you. I had such confidence, just the way she was dominating those races. You got to remember, before that, she had won. She got second in the Belmont. She won by 12 in the CCA Oaks. She won by 4 in the Alabama. She won by 9 or 10, let's call it, in the Beldame. And then she came into the Distaff and finished 4th, and just never looked, we knew we weren't cashing that thing pretty quick, and it just was disappointing because it just wasn't something we had seen from her. You can see the box here. Not only was she not, forwardly placed like she had been in the last couple of races, but she just kind of got shuffled back and early on in the race, and then kind of tried to make a run, but had nothing left late in the thing. And so her and Secret Oath were very disappointing that day as well. Claire Air even disappointed a little bit, but yeah, it was just one of those races that you're like, yeah, that was not what you going into it. You thought, man, this is gonna be a hell of a race, and it just wasn't.
Yep, sucked.
So there you go. We're both on. Thank you for that. We're both on Nest to win and hopefully make her her journey back to the Distaff and win that thing. All right. What do you guys think? Is she gonna? Are we overhyping Nest? It kind of feels like we might be.
Yeah. That's my job, I guess. I've always really, really liked her since Saratoga last year. So, she can disappoint me again. That's fine. I wanted to comment. I was hoping that you were on here, Moist Ham, whoever you might be, because I did want to say the FTR Bullet Club Gold match was probably the best wrestling match I've ever seen, like my whole life. I thought that was what wrestling should be. Blood and Guts, that's not really, it was fine, but that's not really my thing.
What was, just for all the curious listeners, as myself included, what are you referring to?
Yeah, so Cooper's little wrestling guy, Cash.
Yeah.
So him and his partner, Dax, are the tag team champions, and they face these guys called are named the Bullet Club Gold, which is Jay White and Juice Robinson, and they're 4 excellent wrestlers, and they're very entertaining people. They had a best 2 out of 3 falls match for the tag team championships. It went 58 minutes.
Jeez.
And I'm telling you right now, it felt like it lasted 2 minutes. I looked at Heather at the 40-minute mark. I said, they're going an hour, and I hope they go the whole show. I hope it's 2 hours, right? It absolutely was the greatest wrestling match I've ever seen. And I'm talking about a pure wrestling match. Maybe I've been more hyped for different matches, but they couldn't have done anything better, in my opinion, and they couldn't have done anything more. The whole time you had no idea who was going to win the match. And I think that's because these FTR, these guys are incredible, but so's the Bullet Club. And it's like, they could totally change the titles here. I wouldn't be shocked at all. I mean, it was incredible. So, and then Blood and Guts is like the hardcore fans' dream. They lock a bunch of guys in a cage and they just be like, use a bed of nails and use glass and all that shit. And I don't hate it, but that's not what I like about wrestling.
Isn't that like what Mankind used to do a lot, like those kind of matches?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, ECW old school type matches. And there's a guy in AEW that's all he can really do, and so they just do them a lot. And I didn't hate it. Like, I liked it. It was fun, but I don't rank that. I didn't once it was over, I didn't give it another thought.
what like how do you make? I'm just trying to think. Like, I feel like an hour match would be like insanely boring. So how did they? Like, were they like out of the ring? Were they throwing like? Was it literally just in the ring fighting the whole time?
That's what the amazing thing about it. They broke no tables. They used no chairs. There were no props. They did go outside of the ring a bit during about the 45-minute mark. Mostly it was in the ring. And that's what made it, to me, the greatest thing I've seen. Definitely since I started back, but probably the best one I've ever seen, because you wouldn't think you could make that interesting for 58 minutes. And not only did they make it interesting, it was best 2 out of 3 falls. The first fall, if they just would have stopped it right there, it probably would have been one of the best matches I've ever seen. And they still had 2 more. I think the 2 out of 3 falls aspect kept it interesting.
So what does that mean?
Meaning you had to pin them 2 out of, it's best 2 out of 3. So one fall, like one pin isn't it. You got to pin them twice, right?
Got it. Okay.
So you get a pin and then it restarts and then you go again. And the second pinfall, they did like everything they could possibly do to a guy, and he kept kicking out. And just the realness of how they acted it out. It looked like 2 guys that were like, they looked at each other like, we don't know what else we could do. And then they would do something else and the guy would kick out and they would be like, I don't know. And so as a fan, like, you're supposed to root for FTR. They're the good guys, and you're watching this going, they're never going to win. Like, they're these people that we love, they're not going to win, and anyway, it was 4 guys that are incredible workers that told a story that was just, you just got swept up in it. It was amazing.
Well, I know what I'm doing this weekend. Then I'll have to watch it.
You need to find it. Yeah. It's again, like, it never was boring. There never was a low spot where it's like, this sucks. When they had rest holds, something was going on besides that the whole time. It was awesome. I mean, I've watched it twice now, and it's just really, really good.
So was this like a pay-per-view or something? Or
no, just a Saturday night television match that lasted 1 hour.
Jeez. I mean,
and like I said, it like Blood and Guts lasted an hour, but you got a cage, you got 5 people on each side, and you could do all this shit. But to go in there and it's a tag team match and you got to kill an hour and all you're doing is in the ring, and you just don't. And FTR has had some great matches, like with the Briscoes, but I think this was better because they're just awesome. It was awesome.
Well, I'd be able to go for an hour and just like keep, that's
yeah,
that's insane. You got to have a ton of ability just to, fake or not, to just get up and run and hit. And, it's like, I would be dead. Those guys had to have been dead at the end of that thing.
They were exhausted. Yeah. Jay White for the Bullet Club, I don't think he has 1 ounce of fat on him. So he could probably win another hour. The rest of those guys, they seemed a little bit gassed. There was a point about the 50-minute mark. They just all got in the ring and they looked at each other and the crowd just went nuts because it's like, this still isn't over. I mean, this is incredible. And yeah, Dave Meltzer, who's been covering wrestling, ever since we were even following Jared, like when we were in high school and before, he called it the best televised tag team match in the history of American television. So,
dang, I'm gonna have to watch. Where can I watch this at?
I don't know where you could find it, where you could watch it on demand. I have no idea. But yeah, I mean, even Heather was like. Because I said, this is going to last a while. And she's like, I just hope it doesn't get stale, because she kind of has that. It's not a short attention span, but she gets a little antsy the whole time. She was just like, this is like, I hope they wrestle for 2 hours. I was like, me too. Cancel everything else. Just keep going. Yeah.
When was this?
This was last Saturday night. And I knew it'd be a good match. Like, I was excited for it, tuned in. And like at the 30-minute mark, I was like, this is nuts. Like, this is crazy. So yeah, it was awesome. There was an hour time limit So they kept teasing that it might be a draw. So you're kind of worried the whole time. It's like, no, don't do a draw. That's the only thing that could ruin it to this
Yeah.
point. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, that's all the time we have. Check us out at racingdudes.com for our free picks. That's a good segue. And our premium selections on our products page. Click the Get Racing Dudes premium button at the menu at racingdudes.com to learn more. Remember to go get your hands on that Haskell betting Bible, available now on that webpage as well as anywhere on the website. Just look for the Haskell information. You can see a link to go download the Haskell betting Bible, get our full analysis of not just the Haskell, but all 14 races on the card, how we're betting that, how we're going to play it. Are we playing doubles? Are we playing exactas? Everything's included in that thing. You don't want to make a bet without having the betting Bible. So go get your hands at that, racingdudes.com, as well as the best bets page. If you haven't checked out the best bets page, what have you been doing? Go to the racingdudes.com. See on the menu there, you can see best bets and just check out the best bets for Halterman and myself. Obviously with Saratoga, we've been doing a lot of Saratoga. Del Mar kicking off. We'll be adding that. Monmouth, I'm going to guess we'll have some plays this weekend as well as baseball. And of course, when football rolls around, we'll have those. The whole team, anybody, that you want to follow, we have not just our picks, but also how we've done, our percentages, how much money we've profited over, certain sports, everything you want. So if you're looking like, hey, like you guys have, we just covered a ton on this podcast. Okay, well, what is Jared really like? What is he playing today? What is his best bets? And it's very similar to the betting Bible. Only in the betting Bible, we focus on one track, whereas this is like literally the best of my bets today. Could be from anywhere. So make sure you go check out the best bets page at racingdudes.com. We're on Twitter at racing_dudes, Instagram and Facebook. You can find all episodes of Blinkers Off by visiting our podcast page, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places you listen to a podcast. We are there, as well as the Magic Mike Show. They did the Monmouth Park Saturday Pick 5, so preview. So make sure you go check out the Magic Mike Show on all those same platforms. And you and your dad did the late Pick 5 at Saratoga, right?
Yeah, we did the late Pick 5 at Saratoga. We were having a ton of fun with that. We do it a little bit different than the Magic Mike Show. We do a combined ticket. So what we'll do, we'll go through all 5 of the races. We'll write down all the horses that we think we might want to use, kind of talk about them all, and then go back through and narrow it down. We were, like I said, we're having a good time. The show was pretty good last week. We got so unlucky with Gold Sweep breaking horribly, but got another one for you this week. Papa Dude was all kinds of stress before the show started. He's, this is the hardest thing ever. And by the time the show was over, he's like, I feel pretty good about this one. So go check that one out if you want some comedy there.
I enjoy it because it's like listening. It's just like, because it's just like whenever you go to the track and someone says, hey, you guys want to combine a Pick 5 ticket? And you're like, and everyone's kind of like, all right, and then it's just going through. It's like, I like this horse. You got to use this horse. And I enjoy it, just you and your dad, just because it's just like, Dad, we can't use all of those horses, or whatever.
You've seen this in person. It's just on a show now.
Exactly. I know. Everyone else can see what I've seen for years.
And he's terrified of first-time starters. He's like, you can't use a first-time starter. And I kept telling him, I said, Dad, they're first-time starters at Saratoga. That means they really like these horses. Like, we have to use a first-time starter. So the first race was a 2-year-old race. It's race 7 Saturday at Saratoga. None of them had started. So he was so mad. He's like, we should do the early one. I don't want to do this first-time starter race. I said, Dad, this is what Saratoga. This is what makes it special. It's we might see the next Derby winner on Saturday. You never know.
So he's picking anyone that's trained by Pletcher or Asmussen or whoever. Yeah. So, so make sure you go check out the Dudes You Bet podcast as well. And happy opening day. If you're listening to this Friday, happy opening day to Del Mar. Obviously, we'll have picks for Del Mar, the entire meet, Saratoga, Monmouth, all that this weekend. Whew, what a podcast. But man, it feels like this, even though Saratoga is week 2, this feels like the kickoff of summer racing. And it feels like it's going to live up to it too. I hope.
I feel like it's going to be, I feel like this is the weekend we've been waiting for ever since we realized this Triple Crown's kind of falling apart, right? Like when the injuries are happening, especially about 2 days before the Derby, it's like now Forte's hurt. It's like, this is what we were dreaming of in May. So it's here. Let's enjoy it. Let's cash tickets.
Who before I just put you on the spot? Out of everyone, all the races we talked about, which horse are you most confident in?
Mm. We talked about so many races.
Blazing Sevens.
No, probably Red Knight. I really like him in that race.
Wow. Okay, I didn't see you going there. All right.
Yeah.
I would say, boy, I would. It'd be. I can't say Nez just because of Clairiere, even though I would get. I'm close to there. I would probably go. I'd probably go Arabian Night, which is wild to think, but because it's a tough race, but it's we like you said, we covered a lot. You certainly aren't going to Del Mar anywhere, and I went against Blazing Sevens, so LaGuardia maybe, but I don't have the confidence just because of all the Chad Brown. So that should tell you it's a hell of a card, hell of a weekend. Make sure you guys tune in to all these our shows on YouTube. If you haven't done that, go to YouTube and like our videos and subscribe so you get all the information for the meets coming up. And thanks for tuning in, guys. And man, good luck this weekend because it is a hell of a weekend. I hope if you're playing the Haskell, if you're playing that, when you're playing the Haskell, I hope you find a winner. Hope we all can find a winner. I'm Jared Welch. He's Aaron Halterman. Good luck this weekend.